Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler at Dick Powell's Leadership Corner, brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, and Water Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. The information on today's program was gathered from many different places and people. If you hear yourself in our conversation today, it's not all about you. For speaking engagements or appearances, just give us a call here at 727-422-1833 or send us an email, dick@ewfw.org. Today we have Miss Robin with us. Miss Robin, how are you doing today?
I am terrific.
Fantastic. I understand that you have come today with a special topic.
I have. In our normal thing with your boss, your business, your organization, your family and friends.
Right.
We talk about a lot of things. And one of the things that I was reminded of with a surprise Christmas present was the necessity for recognition and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we go about letting people be accountable in a simple, straightforward way?
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that we actually need to make sure we recognize them at some point,
Okay.
for doing other tasks that were assigned. So that's where we're kind of going with this.
Okay.
It's about the accountability.
In every organization or family, there is an accountability factor.
Correct.
And in organizations, especially nonprofit organizations where you're working with people who aren't being paid position,
Right. And sometimes you only get what you pay for.
you really need to make sure that there's some kind of accountability. If not, everybody just goes off the rails and kind of does their own thing.
Or they do nothing.
So it's very important
It is.
to take and really get down some actual things. And Robin's called them here actions, accountability, recognition.
Right.
And those three things are what we're going to talk about today and why they're so important. Now, I see the first thing on your list is you want to talk about job descriptions.
Right. We've talked about this frequently, and we hope people are kind of buying into the fact that before you ask someone to do a job, or before you accept a responsibility or a job or whatever it is, that you need to have some kind of written job description.
Right.
And it might be that, like in our marriage, I was just thinking about this. We just celebrated our 46th anniversary.
46.
So we have some background. That 46 years ago, we made some decisions on our honeymoon about how things were going to be. And at that time, again, that was the beginning of the women's lib movement, literally. You had a lot of things that were women's work and men's work.
Yeah.
And that kind of is where it started. And that's gotten kind of fluid and gray over time.
Muddied, I'd say.
Really muddy. There's a few things Dick does not do. And there are things that I do not do. I do not clean garages or work on cars. I might wash the car, vacuum it out. I put gas in it. I tell you when things light up. But basically, that's not my job. Again, I don't expect you to do the laundry or run the vacuum or do things like that. You help out, and that's good and helpful. I mean, that's how it works. I get busy, and you have to pick up the slack, or you're busy and I pick up some slack. It depends. But again, to have basic expectations about who's responsible for what in all situations is helpful.
What I want to say to add to that really is this, and in any organization, profit or nonprofit, each job, each opportunity needs to have some kind of description of what's expected of that person doing the job.
Correct.
And by that I mean is it can't be really verbal. When it's verbal, there's too many misconstrued or misunderstood messages sent. It's, I thought I heard you say, I thought I understood you do, blah, 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 blah. And the problem with that is that both people get upset because expectations aren't met.
Right.
So both sides lose.
Right. It creates problems.
So
that don't need to happen.
When we write down expectations and the two people agree on them, it really starts to send a different tone to your organization.
Right.
I have to tell you how important this is. One of the biggest lessons we learned very quickly when we were interviewing people for jobs is that when we used to not write down those things, expectations weren't met on both sides. And the other thing was there was no accountability there. So there was no expectations written down. There was no accountability, and everything was just wishy-washy. And well, that's what we got. So here's
Yeah.
what we're saying to you. Profit or nonprofit organizations need to have job descriptions with written expectations. This way, each person knows what they're responsible for. Now, some of those expectations need to be the length of the job service that they're going to do. Some of those terms are 2 years, some of them 1 year, but it needs to be written plainly. This will be for 1 term or 2 terms, and exactly what does that mean?
Right.
Okay. It needs to have approximately how many meetings they might need to be going to.
And are they expected to be at the meeting, or can they do a conference call in?
Yeah, I mean, so that expectation.
Or just wait for the minutes. Again, that's the expectation. When to expect those?
No matter what.
The secretary.
They need to know what their guidelines are. That's the ticket here.
You need to know the parameters.
Everybody needs to know what lane they're in, and how do they kind of navigate that lane.
Right.
And it still might have some maneuvering, but
right.
They need to know the basic sidelines.
But the other part of this is that if all the responsibilities are written down and delegated, then if someone does more than what they're expected and start stepping on toes, you can reel them back in and say, you've overstepped. Thank you very much for what you've done, but this person is responsible for that. Let's make them do their job. And that's always been, for many, many years, my mantra is, when you take a job, you will do the job. It's not my job to do your job. And I have been involved with people who tend to invite you to do the job and then do it for you, and giving you funny looks when you walk in prepared, and they go, because they're really not a leader, they're a manager, and they can't let go of anything. Maybe they're a dictator, I don't know. But whatever label you want to put on them, it's not a.
It doesn't make for a happy organization.
Right. It's not a congenial place where everybody has a job or a purpose or responsibility. I mean, if I don't have to do anything, I don't need to come.
How would I go about listing a set of expectations for a job?
Again, most of these are organizations we're involved in where there's a committee of some description. And most people in the committee are going to know something about parts of it. They might not know all the different parts, but they know something. And just sit down and start.
Okay.
And then you can
would it be helpful
edit
to
it as you need to.
Kind of make a list of things that need done?
Things that need to be done.
And then the expectations underneath those things?
Right. Who's going to do
so that when those are delegated, it's, well, you're going to take and be in charge of the flowers. And that means...
Yeah, you're going to get the flowers. You're going to make the flower arrangement. You can take flowers after you're done with the flowers. Whatever that takes. I was just having these flashbacks to sitting down in the morning with a cup of tea when I had a part-time job, and leaving lists for children to do during the day when I was at work.
Expectations.
It gave them something to do, and I had to make sure I had the same number of jobs for the day on each list, or I was going to be in trouble. But again, they were old enough to do what needed to be done. I didn't say you had to do it by a certain time, like our mothers would have done. I said, you have to do it before I get home. And just you make your own schedule, however order you want to do it, and have it done by the time I get home.
So see what it does when you have those expectations. It releases all that heavy pressure on
everybody.
What do they expect me to do? Right. When do I have to have it done? Oh, I did it right? Oh, and who do I report to? That's an important piece right there of the expectation.
This is the reason that I wanted to have this talk. How do you record what you've done, and that you've done it right, and that you've hit all your high points?
You've heard
now, for me, I have a weak list.
But you've heard me talk about metrics here.
Yeah, the metrics. It's a big word.
Probably till I'm blue in the face.
Right.
All that means is I need some kind of checklist. I need some kind of due date. I need some kind of thing to hold me accountable, so that I know that I'm getting them done on the time that's necessary.
And you need to do that so you can see you've accomplished things. You need to check it off or whatever you need to do. So what I'm thinking is, for an organization, if you had a list of the jobs and the frequency. Some things only need to be done twice a year.
Right.
Some things need to be done monthly or as they come up or whatever. But just to keep track of that. And then as you do them, kind of check it off. Right. If it's a big organization, you might create forms. I'm big on Excel forms. I mean, I think they're the easiest thing in the world. Make an Excel form.
I keep going back to when I was a Cub Master.
Yeah. Okay.
And there was all of these jobs that needed to be done, and there was no way I could do them all.
Right.
But when I would ask for help, but no one to raise their hand, of course. So what I did was I wrote up an expectation list of each job, And I walked down in the audience one day and I said, this only takes one time, or this takes two times. Are you willing to do that? It was amazing to me. I handed out all those papers in one night.
They didn't understand. Most of those jobs took 30 minutes.
It was amazing.
You know, and then you were done.
The thing that sold it, though, is what I expected, or what was expected of them, was written in plain English in black and white.
Right.
And they had a copy, and I had a copy. When they said yes, I wrote their name on the top of my copy. I said,
what's your phone number? Yeah.
I'll check in with you, and
you have a problem, give me a call.
Yeah. Other than that,
That's
no
simple.
big deal.
That's simple. And I've done the same thing in other organizations where you delegate the responsibilities. Sometimes I get I know one time years ago, a friend of mine volunteered to find someone to do music for all of our monthly meetings. That was huge. She was in the choir. She knew all those people.
Yeah.
That was the best year for music ever. But guess who she put on first? Me. Guess what she put on second? The coordinating team. We had a kitchen band one month. Can you imagine? I mean, we were literally playing graders.
I really remember it. It was interesting.
It was a good year. But everybody had a job and expectation. You have to lead the way.
And that's the point here. You okay?
Yeah, the crud. Keeps creeping back.
The thing about what Robin and I are trying to take and tell you is the importance of working with nonprofit organizations probably is even more important than working with for-profit organizations. In that, the point that comes up that in a nonprofit organization where people are not being paid, quite frankly, sometimes it's hard to let them go. If there's a set of expectations that they've signed on to, not so hard. But in a for-profit organization, I have to tell you this, the same way. It's hard to let people go when they don't know what's expected of them and you have never told them and it's never written down. Again, that sets you up for a problem of misunderstanding.
And don't forget, there are people who will read the expectations, decide that's not what they signed on for, and do something completely different.
And if they do, you can ask them to go.
Say thank you very much, but bye. Yeah.
But if not, I give you a great example. When you're interviewing someone for a job and you did not write down the expectations, and 6 months later they change into this entirely different person. You have nothing to fall back on. Okay, your HR person is going to say, well, didn't you do? And you're going to say no. And so you have nowhere to go. Now, instead of taking 6 days to ask somebody to take 6 days to help someone find something new, it'll take you 6 months to take and make the same thing happen.
Right.
Not a good thing.
And do check with people, whether it's for-profit or not-for-profit, how they're doing, if they need help, what you can do to help them while they're helping you, that kind of thing. But just be aware.
I used to always do a quick check-in, but I never told them how to do anything. You know, you're doing okay? If they said they were doing okay, I was done with it.
I remember walking into the dish room at Camp Point Summer. We were working out there, and it was the first day we had a full group in at lunch, and there was literally stacks of lunch trays 4 feet tall sitting on the dishwasher. And I said to the kid that was sitting there, because I was somebody to do everything fast, and we haven't been having to work very fast to that point. Do you need some help? And he went, I said, get out of my way. I got this.
Yeah.
And he just, it was just so much, he couldn't.
He was overwhelmed.
By the next meal, he was fine. But he was just completely overwhelmed. And that, again, was, showing help and support for people. And
I think we've covered the list and expectations pretty well. You have down here date, due, and frequency.
Right.
I think that's really important.
Well, one of the things right now is our church. It was a minimal part of my responsibilities right now, honestly. But the information for the next month's newsletter is due the 3rd Sunday of the previous month.
Okay.
Now, if I want to write out my part of the program for that's due the 3rd Sunday, I got to have all those pieces online. I got to have who's doing devotions and who's doing the music and what else is going on. Whoever's doing all that has to be in. And it seems to be, even 5 or 6 months into it, whatever we are right now, very difficult for some of the team members to know that it's due.
And don't you wonder why they don't put that on their calendar?
It's conceptually, who is doing this now? I don't know yet. I'm waiting for someone to get back to me, or I asked one person, they said no, or and that's a problem. I had that job before too. It's not that pleasant. But again, knowing when I have to have and I have to write it up so it makes sense.
So the due dates of things needing done.
It's important.
Becomes very important.
We just had Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Now December 25th seems to be the due date for everything. Everything is due December 25th. You can't put it off any longer. You've got to have your cards mailed out before then, your gifts all wrapped. Everything is. And the funny thing was somebody posted, what's his face? It's the Elf and the Elf movie. Giggling and excited because there's on December 26th, there was 364 days until Christmas. Yay! And I'm thinking, that's the due date. Everything has it. And other things have other dates. I noticed today I hadn't taken the mileage off the cars.
Oh no!
That affects our income taxes. Kind of got to get track on that. I think yours hasn't been anywhere, so you're okay. I guessed at mine. Close enough. But again, there's due dates and things. So, yep, your taxes are due April. Ours are due March 15th or April 15th or whatever they're due. If you have an extension, they're still due October 1st. You got to know those things. And the same thing in everything else in life. Everything has a due date.
That would be written in those expectations.
Expectations.
Now, if you're a board member and you're in charge of a certain piece, that expectation probably is you're going to check in once a month or once every other month at a board meeting.
Could be.
I have to tell you that.
Is that written down?
Well, it is on the groups that I'm with because I'm a stickler for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it drives me nuts, quite frankly, when I go to a board meeting and people walk in without a pen, without a pencil, without a pad of paper, with no notes, and sit down.
And they're engaged, right? They think they're engaged.
And so I ask them, well, how do we do on that? How's the treasury? How's the, and they go, oh. Like they never understood that you have to come, you're coming to work, by golly.
You have things to
come
do.
Prepared.
Well, I was at a meeting this morning. I got the heads report last week. I made my report.
Mm-hmm.
No one else had a report. The treasurer did send her report out. No one else had a report. Didn't have a verbal report when we got there. Most people didn't bother printing out the agenda or anything else. And you have to go, wait a minute. You're at a meeting, you have a responsibility, and these are,
And you didn't print the agenda out?
We didn't print the agenda out. I always have the agenda because I write notes on it.
So you know what was going on?
The order, what was,
that really
the new
drives me
business,
nuts.
the old business, And I'm thinking if you didn't print it out, you probably didn't really read it, so you have not been thinking about the challenges with the new business and the old business, or the unfinished business and the new business in between. So what do you have to offer?
Yeah.
You haven't even been thinking about it. And I don't know how to encourage people to do that kind of thing. So
I noticed
it's a challenge.
You've got written down here chart, checkoff list, etc.
Yeah, I charged it up at my week list.
Well, but I think the chart on the one board I'm on, I keep track of who shows up and what time they show up and are they prepared and things like that. And I have to tell you that chart has become very important now that the group wants to put more people on the board. And I said, well, according to our bylaws, 4 of you are no longer on the board because you've missed 3 meetings. And they looked at me very funny.
That's 3 out of 4 for you, right?
When I told them that they weren't on the board. Mm-hmm. So you see how these things start to add up and change. And we are all involved in something. Whether it's just your family, not just, but your family thing, okay? There's got to be some accountability in there too. But at churches, I've noticed that nonprofits and churches and different things, that how these are kind of fluffed over. Even at Boy Scouts and Girl Scout troops that we've been involved in, I've seen them fluffed over because, well, they're not paid. Well, that's just a poopy answer.
It doesn't mean anything.
It just tells me that they're not dedicated. They haven't said yes to doing the job.
And you hit on a really high part there. They're not paid. But on many boards, especially not-for-profit boards, the people on the board are expected to pay money into the organization. I mean, they're expected to come with a chunk.
So that gives them a right to sit there and do nothing?
Or it gives them a right to use that title in something else they want.
Well, that came up in our last meeting.
And that's come up a lot, too.
The one gentleman who was on the board said, if you all are here just to put this on your resume, please get up and leave now.
Oh, whoa.
And 2 of them did.
Oh my goodness.
Um,
Oh my.
They weren't missed.
Well, they weren't offering anything anyway.
The situation here, ladies and gentlemen, what Rob and I are trying to really get to you about is that if you're going to be in a part of an organization and someone says, hey, Dick, why could you be our whatever? And you say, I'd be glad to look at that. What are the expectations? What's my time commitment? What's my financial commitment? And you start asking questions and they have no answers. Wow. Say no. And that's been the hard thing for me, is to say no. It's been hard for Robin too, because we are doers, and doers get in trouble sometimes because we don't say no. But at our age now, we have seemed to learn how to say no a little better. So we're trying to encourage you to know how to do these things.
And pick and choose.
And that's
still
why
have a family and everything else.
That's why this thing's important. Keeping these things and putting together a set of job descriptions with expectations, so that when you do ask somebody, hey, you know, I got the kick. They said they couldn't find enough elders at church this last time around. And I said, well, what was the expectations? Well, they know what they are. They're a 3-year commitment. I said, well, how many meetings? Well, once a month at least. I said, well, did you tell them that?
Twice a month.
No. I said, so did you tell them they were in charge of a committee? No. Did you tell them there was a financial obligation? No. I said, so why would they say yes?
What are they saying yes to? They're smart people. Yeah. It's 2019 and people are smart enough not to just say yes.
Why would they say yes to that if they didn't know what those are? And they couldn't go home and talk to their spouse about, hey, this is a big commitment. It's 2 meetings a month plus. It's the financial piece. I'm going to need to tithe. Mm-hmm. I'm going to probably be more than twice a month because we've got these other activities going.
Right.
It looks like it's probably 10 to 15 hours a week.
Ouch. That's a lot.
You know what? That might make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Busy people.
Now,
busy
here's
families.
the thing. If the person had said yes, and then said yes and went on the board, and then couldn't do all those things, couldn't commit.
Or just didn't do them.
Then think what other people would say. Well, that sorry sucker, he didn't do this, and blah, 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 blah. Well, you know, you didn't tell them what to be expected, and now they didn't do it. So who's it wrong?
It's wrong all the way around.
Right.
Okay.
So tracking is going to be really important.
Tracking, and again, you can make your own chart, your own list. Like I have my own list, and my own goal for years has been get it all done by Friday.
Which happens sometimes, by the way.
Which was why I didn't do meetings on Fridays for years, so I had to get the rest of my housework done. Because I did not want to be doing it on the weekend around 3 people. It's hard to back them around 3 people. Things like that, but track it, and if you're going to track it, and my list gets run away at the end of the week anyway, so it doesn't matter. But if you're going to really track something for an organization, you might want to make an Excel form.
If it's on an
organization, and keep track of it, what you've done, and that you've done all your stuff and everything else. If your job is to be the in-between person between the board and the general population, you might be keeping track of smaller groups of your group. Mm-hmm. And how often are you going to do that? And who are you going to contact? And those are things that you need to really keep track of.
If you're in charge of a head situation, you have a subheads underneath you. Mm-hmm. There you go.
I mean, who's keeping track of you?
I always like to know, who do I report to, and who reports to me?
Yeah, who am I responsible for?
And I like to know that. I like to know on my calendar that I can write in there the dates of the meetings.
Yes.
And the important places I have to be.
And we do that. We start now.
Okay, and
write those meetings down.
So I can make plans, and we can look at our family time and say, oh, this is that, and we're moving around.
Somebody noticed about the middle of December that January 1st this year was on a Tuesday. So all those meetings are on the first Tuesday. Or the first Wednesday, probably aren't happening this week. So I get a phone call from one of the guys, and he said, I'm just going to move everything forward 1 week. Does that work for you? I said, yeah, we kind of planned it that way because we knew January 1st was on our first meeting of the month. We bumped out a week, bumped other things a week, other things because of what we're doing is different. It showed up on a different week of the month. So it's all fine. It worked out well. And still there's 5 Tuesdays, and we have because we don't have a regular meeting on the fourth Tuesday, we don't have we have our fifth Tuesday, still a fifth Tuesday. So it's for other projects and everything else. So it worked out really nicely. But I thought it was interesting how long it took the guy in charge of one part to figure that out when we had figured it out last fall when we made our calendar.
Here again.
Pay attention to those calendars. They're important.
Prior planning prevents.
Our life here works around calendars, weekly calendars, daily tracking things. Sometimes those are blank. Sometimes I got a lot of stuff.
Not very often.
We got to do in a day or in a week. It kind of catches up with you. But keep track, and then just kind of pat yourself on the back a little bit. You did a good job.
Yeah, about the only time those things are blank is when we're traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have to clear to get it blank. The other thing we're going to talk about is to recognize the people that you're responsible for who have done a good job, and at some point you need to recognize those people.
Mm-hmm.
You just say, "Hey, I'm so proud of you. Actually." I'm sorry, my cough drop got stuck. You actually did what you said you were going to do in spite of the rest of your life and the rest of your calendar or whatever else is going on in the world. You did a really great job. And give them a present.
It just might be, you need to know what stimulates each person.
That's true.
You know,
that's
I used to tell my boss all the time, you could buy me a cup of coffee and tell me I did a good job, and that'd be great. That's worth more to me than that dollar in my paycheck. And he would look at me really funny. Mm-hmm. But when I got to be the boss and I started buying the donuts and the coffee, it amazed everyone how happy and how changed the atmosphere at the office became. It was amazing. I thought,
how simple.
Man, this is like the cheapest thing I could ever do.
That's like what, $10 a week?
You know, and the other boss was buying these really expensive gifts and writing them off on the company run. But, they meant nothing to people.
No.
So know it kind of does, but do say thank you. Do put forth something that says, hey, we appreciate the time you put into this.
I remember one of the girls that summer we worked at camp at the end of the summer said, I want a t-shirt that says, I took a shower and washed my hair every day. Because not everybody does. But yeah, little things like that. But again, different people have different motivators, and if it's an organization where you have done a personality test or things like that, you'll find out what motivates people. You also need to find out that again, the most important thing is their preferred form of communication.
Right.
I still prefer email. Most people I know are either email or text.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are strictly our text. They don't if they want to talk to you, they'll hit the call button.
Maybe.
Otherwise, your text. But find out what their preferred form of communication is. I know I deal with a lot of older women who don't have computers or cell phones and things, and their phone call or a card.
Mm-hmm.
Mailing a card is.
I still make phone calls, but I like that.
But he's a phone company guy.
Okay.
So
Well, let me run over what Robin has on the list, because I see as we're coming down to the end of our time, like we usually do. Robin, on Robin's list, she put here actions, accountability, recognition. And some things we've talked about today were job descriptions and how important they were. List of expectations within that job description, so everyone kind of knows what their job is, but they also know what other people's jobs are. Where do I go if I have a problem or I have a question? And that becomes so important. Okay. Date, the dates of due and the frequency of those dates need to be written down so everybody kind of stays on board. Have some kind of chart or check off list, whatever works for you, and find a way to track it on that check off list. It just is very important. And by golly, find a way to say thank you to all those people who are doing the hard work, especially in nonprofits. Well, I see that we're right down on the bottom of our time zone. So on behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and Robin Powell, and the whole Leadership Corner team, we want to say thank you for staying on board today. Where our hope is that you've received a nugget of wisdom and guidance that will help you on your leadership ability. Now, if you have any questions or comments on today's program, don't hesitate. Give us a phone call, 727-422-1833, or send me an email, dick@ewfw.org. Or you know what? When you know that you need the very best in a person to come and do a keynote speech or some kind of talk on leadership, give Dick Powell, myself, a call, 727-422-1833, dick@leadershipwrangler.com. Robin, you got anything to say?
Yeah.
We're winding right down to the best months here. All right, until next time, this is DW the Wrangler saying, ride hard, ride fast.